every MMA fighter will have to retire. It doesn't matter if they are the greatest of all time, could be the fighter that got you into the sport. Unfortunately, a career in cage fighting is impossible to maintain all your life. We've taken a look at the saddest and the most emotional ones, several that were forced because of an injury, but today we're going to shine a ray of light on the best retirements in MMA. The guys and gals who went out on top, or just had the perfect send-off to cap their legendary careers. Get ready to feel those wholesome butterflies.
Release the gun.
Is summer the best season? I mean, the sun's out, you got longer days, you get barbecues with your friends, cookouts if you're American actually. But being out in the garden at the weekend, it's a regular occurrence. It's also a bloody good time to upgrade your wardrobe with some new True Classic t-shirts and shorts. And if you do it now, you can make the most of the True Classic summertime sale. And they're giving you guys 25% off if you head to trueclassictees.com and use the code MMAOnPoint25 at checkout. We already know their t-shirts are designed to look and make you feel good. True Classic is pretty much what I wear on a daily basis now, alright? It's become a staple. Plus, the fit is spot on, it's slim but not too slim, alright? It hugs your arms just right. They've got all these new colours that are ready for summer and they come in packs as well, so you don't just have to buy one. You can be like me and have a shirt for every day of the week. And if you need some new shorts, True Classic has got you covered there as well. They've got stuff for the gym, the beach, a night out with your mates. There's two different lengths. They've got 7.5 and 9.5 inches, and they've got a whole bunch of different colours of those as well. They've also got this 4-way stretch system, which gives you all this flexibility as well. And you know, I need to be able to throw high kicks at any moment, okay? In fact, True Classic are so dedicated to their products, they even have a 100% risk-free guarantee and easy returns. And we love a good guarantee around here. So if you're ready to upgrade your wardrobe and your look, head to trueclassictees.com and use the code MMAOnPoint25. You get your 25% off at checkout. You can look your best, feel your best with True Classic. I'm Bailey, and for MMA On Point, I want to give a quick shout out to you Hall of Famers. You know who you are. Thank you for supporting the channel. And these are the 10 best retirements in MMA. Number 10, Chris Lytle. Let's kick things off with a real veteran of mixed martial arts, a man whose career started way back in 1999, where he fought his way through the Japanese pancrase scene, through the MMA dark ages, and right up to the mid-2000s boom. And for as much as Chris Lytle never failed to put on a show, no matter who he got on a cage with, he also went out while he was still getting wins. He'd won 4 out of his last 5 fights when he got to have his grand send-off in Milwaukee, headlining a fight night against another savage in Dan Hardy. It was a classic lights out performance, okay? He won fight of the night and got submission of the night to cap it off, and his kids even joined him in the cage as the veteran said goodbye to the sport. And the cheer he got from the crowd was pretty much deafening. It was an awesome moment to witness, a real Hollywood-style ending to a long career. He ultimately admitted he loved being a fighter and being a part of the UFC, but he wanted to spend more time with his children and his family.
When I got to take some time off and spend time with my family, I realized how much I was missing in my life, not doing that more often. I want to go for fun, I don't want to go have to train every day. As soon as I started thinking like that, I said, you can't fight like this. You have to want to be there every day.
He would return 7 years later, though, to win 3 bare-knuckle fights in a row. Yeah, that's just lights out for you. Number 9, Zach Cummings and Ed Herman. In April of this year, there was a very special moment shared by Zach Cummings and Ed Herman, 2 absolute veterans of the sport and the UFC, and they mutually agreed to fight each other and also make it the last fight of their respective careers. For Zach, it was a little bit more special, not just because he managed to get the finish and win, making it 3 knockouts in 3 different weight classes, but also because it was in his adopted home of Kansas City, Missouri, and the crowd poured on the support as he bid farewell to the UFC fans and the sport. Things got even more emotional when his daughter ran into the cage for a hug, but it ended with the absolutely iconic image of both Zach and Ed laying down their gloves next to each other in the octagon and bowing and embracing in respect for both of their careers. Look, it just deserved a mention on this list, and it was an awesome moment for Zach. He didn't go out a champion, but what a special moment in the sport. Number 8, Bas Rutten. There's a countless list of MMA fans and fighters who got into the sport because of the brutal and technical prowess of Bas Rutten. I mean, he finished people on the feet before learning how to grapple, and then he went on a 22-fight unbeaten streak. He became the king of pancrase and eventually the UFC heavyweight champion. Now, Bas didn't have that one epic moment where he said goodbye to the sport like everyone else did, and that's honestly why he's not higher up this list. Unfortunately, El Guapo was plagued by injuries. After he won the UFC title, he blew out his knee again, tore one of his biceps, and was having serious issues with his neck. And a lot of people consider continue and try to fight through that stuff, but he listened to his body and retired from MMA for the time being, at least, in 1999. That's when he became a commentator in Pride and eventually had another fight 7 years later in the WFA. But even after that one, he didn't say he was retiring. He didn't have this big moment, this big speech. He just mentioned he needed more surgeries for injuries he'd picked up in fight camp. But Bas never came back to the sport after that, and he never did get to say a proper goodbye. At the end of the day, he retired on top. And yeah, it may have been due to injuries, but so few fighters actually listen to their own bodies. He did, and that's why he retired as a champion. Number 7, Randy Couture. A lot of newer fans weren't really around to witness any part of Randy's MMA career. A guy who Joe Rogan called his hero on multiple occasions, one of the sport's first big superstars, multiple-time world champion, Air Force veteran, American hero, and he pretty much did it all in his 40s. Randy, though, unlike pretty much everyone on this list, didn't go out on a win. His first UFC show was number 13 in 1997, where he won the heavyweight tournament, and 10 years after that, he won another UFC title, this time for the 5th time in his career. A staggering feat, and as of yet, not really replicated by anyone, but Randy had retired twice during that time, once after losing his trilogy fight with Chuck Liddell and when he couldn't fight Fedor in the UFC. He eventually returned to the sport in both cases, but after 24 UFC fights and at 47 years old, we finally saw Randy hang it up in front of the largest UFC crowd in North American history. They gave him a hero's welcome of a walkout, which is probably the most American thing I've ever seen. Lyoto Machida finished Randy that night with a spectacular front kick, but he even declared Randy a hero to everyone in attendance.
He is a hero! This is the man!
He didn't go out on a win, but my god was it patriotic. Number 6, Genki Sudo. Japanese MMA has had its own fair share of legends when you look back at its history, but not many of them were able to go out on top. But for the superstar, Genki Sudo, he got a pretty much perfect send-off. The biggest show in Japanese MMA happened at New Year's every year, and in 2006, Genki Sudo made one final appearance to take on Damasio Page. I mean, it was truly epic. He got to have one of his legendary walkouts accompanied by a complete dance group ensemble. Honestly, how anyone can do all that and then be focused enough to fight is beyond me. But when he locked up a triangle and tapped out Page, the whole stadium went mental. That made it only one loss in his last 9 fights. He's on a 2-fight win streak. They gave him the microphone and he retired? Yeah, it was surprising. The look on this audience member's face pretty much tells it all, just how huge of a star he was and how big of a deal him walking away really was. It was an emotional moment, but it was all executed so well, you couldn't have scripted it any better. Number 5, Fedor Emilianenko. Martial arts legends don't come much bigger than Fedor. This is a man who won many major outlets Fighter of the Decade for the 2000s, and although he didn't challenge himself in the UFC, once he was no longer that unbeatable force, he kept competing, kept giving the fans a show, and was still willing to risk everything. Going into his fight with the champ Ryan Bader at Bellator 290, we all knew it was going to be his last fight. The fight didn't go his way, but he was nowhere near the fighter he used to be, and it didn't really matter. He was at peace with everything he'd achieved, the good and the bad.
You put your gloves down in the cage afterwards, obviously. Are you at peace with that decision?
Я себя чувствую замечательно.
I feel great.
What truly makes this one of the most special and best retirements in MMA history is all the legends that joined him in the cage afterwards. Never in the history of MMA would all of those fighters be gathered in one place, in one ring. Fedor did that. He transcended promotions, eras, everything.
It was great that all these fighters came and support me.
It just goes to show how many people Fedor touched with his greatness and how much he meant to the MMA world. It's truly the only way to say goodbye to a legend. Number 4, Georges St. Pierre. If you built the Mount Rushmore of MMA, you put GSP on it as one of the legendary fighters who not only faced adversity and came back from it early in his career, but managed to hold onto a world title and establish his own 6-year legacy as a champion. After his fight with Johnny Hendricks, which he admitted was the toughest in his entire career, George's first farewell speech came almost reluctantly. There'd been a few rumors circulating before that fight, but even Joe had to confirm with GSP exactly what was happening.
Are you retiring right now? Is that what you're saying?
I have to go away for a little bit at least.
I think I carry too much pressure for too long. I think I just needed vacation and I was in some kind of depression at the time and I was ashamed to admit it.
And at the time it felt like that may have been it for George, but he wasn't completely retired. He came back and won another title in a different weight class and then was even linked to fights with Habib for a while and Nate Diaz, even wanted to fight the winner of Conor vs Khabib. But ultimately his official retirement came at the Bell Center in Montreal Montreal in 2019.
I announced my retirement. There's no tears. I'm very happy to do it. It takes a lot of discipline though to retire on top. I want to retire on my own and not be told to retire.
It wasn't in front of a sellout crowd this time, but it was dignified and professional, always hallmarks of GSP's career. He didn't need to take any more chances or prove anything else. He walked away as a champion with 2 belts he never lost and retired legacy intact and one of the greatest of all time. Number 3, Robbie Lawler. There's a famous line about Robbie Lawler that Dana said that I always like to bring up, and that he bought Robbie as a birthday present to himself back in 2002. And that's when Robbie was just a 20-year-old kid from Iowa and a product of the Militich fighting systems. Fast forward 21 years, which, is longer than he'd even been alive at that point, and he's competed across the entire world, from Pride, Elite XC, Strikeforce, and all the way back to the UFC. And although he started to look like the shop-worn version of himself that all fighters inevitably become, he made that difficult choice to say his fight against Nico Price would be his last in the sport. And the UFC spared nothing in making it as special a moment as possible. It was the kind of retirement that all UFC legends deserve. Not only did Robbie win in absolute classic fashion with the first round KO, but the UFC ran a highlights video of some of his greatest moments in his career, and it damn near brought a tear to the eye of everyone in that arena. Never was it more obvious and clear just how tough it is for these fighters to make that decision to hang up their gloves and how much it can hurt. But Lawler's retirement was damn near perfect in almost every single way. Number 2, Habib Nurmagomedov. Going undefeated in an MMA career that lasts 12 years seems almost impossible, and well, let's face it, it pretty much is unless you're not going to fight the best in the world. But what Habib did truly stands out as a unique achievement among a sea of unique achievements. 29-0, never defeated, losing only 2 rounds in his entire career. His retirement definitely left fans wanting more, but after a lifetime of competition and the passing of his father just 3 months before his final fight,
I talked with my mother. I promise her it's gonna be my last fight.
Sadly, because of the pandemic, there were no fans in the arena, but there were millions watching worldwide, and he removed his gloves before even his post-fight interview, so we all knew it was coming. He walked away as the pound-for-pound #1 fighter and undisputed lightweight champion. I mean, that didn't stop Dana trying for 6 months to get him to come back to the sport before even he announced in March the next year that Habib was done and the division would move on. Number 1, Amanda Nunes. It's hard to remember that the Lioness won the UFC title when she was just 28 years old, and then she spent the next 7 years defending that world championship. And just when we thought she might be slipping towards the end after a loss to Pena, well, she turned around and proved us all wrong by absolutely dominating in the rematch. But with little to no competition left at featherweight, a fresh challenger in Irene Aldana at bantamweight, one that she again soundly beat, she built for herself a completely untouchable legacy in women's MMA, and Nunes finally gave up her titles and her position as GOAT. Why did she make it to number 1? Because it was truly an epic moment to see her lay down both titles in the octagon as well as her gloves, those 2 belts side by side. It's an image that we'd never seen before and may never see again. It was a bit of a surprise, but she admitted she had been planning it.
When I signed the contract for this fight, I tried to hide for you guys. I knew the whole time.
She also revealed her long career had been catching up with her.
I have a nerve damage in my leg already, and ain't even supposed to kick anymore.
No one in the history of the sport has walked away with 2 belts. She did it off the back of a flawless performance as well. It was just such a feel-good moment that Nunes had done everything she'd ever set out to achieve, and she's not leaving completely. She wants to stick around. She wants to coach.
I always gonna be here. Maybe a coach, maybe in people's corner. I'm like, I want to make a champion too. I want to be able to be there to see another person succeed.
I mean, sure, Juliana Pena was pissed off, but, I don't think Amanda cared. I'm sorry, but it is the perfect retirement, and I don't think you can argue.
All right, great video today. Great topic, because you get to look back through history at all these legends in the sport and how they went out. I want to shout out Luke Taylor. He's not here today, but you can follow him on his social media. He edited this video. He made it a good one. Thanks, Luke. Appreciate you, lad. Come back to work. Also, shout out to you channel champions who've been joining the MMA On Point community right there. They're getting 2 episodes of a podcast every week, as well as supporting the channel. Writers meeting, there's a lot to get when you join up with us. Click join down below. All the details are down there. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Give us a thumbs up. A like's always appreciated, or subscribe to the channel and you'll get notified when we make more videos.